Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Oshalay here, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. I hope everyone's been having a great day so far, and I really just wanted to share a little bit with you guys and kind of start a discussion going on here on the BookTube and in the BookTube community. And I hope that a lot of you would love to join in with your responses and your own experiences and your own thoughts and feelings about what I'm about to talk about. And yeah, I just invite you to join the conversation and to definitely, communicate with me in the comments as well. And I would love to see your own responses, whether it's via comments or through you making your own video. And yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. Now, as you can see by the title of this video, you kind of already know what I'm going to be talking about, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about why I read. And we all have our own reasons, and a lot of us read because it is an escape. It is a wonderful way to get away and to travel to other worlds and meet people that we may not otherwise get to meet, and see things and experience things that we may never get to experience in our real lives, and just sort of live vicariously through these characters that are created by these writers, and to kind of just get away from our everyday lives and to escape into a world that is just where things, always usually end up the way that we would hope they would in real life, and where we get to have adventures and all these other things. So, people have various reasons for why they read, but that seems to be the main one, is sort of a form of escape. You also have people who read for enlightenment. I would like to say that no matter what reason you're reading, it's always going to be an escape, because a book is always a window into another reality and another world. And so you have people who read for enlightenment, who want to read and learn and better themselves, whether it's through, fiction books, which you can do that through fiction, or nonfiction, or advice, or, even spiritual texts. You have a lot of people who read for enlightenment and to kind of improve on themselves and improve on their lives. Then you have people who read for study and for research, and this happens a lot usually in our educational system, in our higher educational system. People who are reading hours and hours and hours a day and a week, trying to study and to learn a particular coursework or a particular skill to go into a particular career field. So you have people who do that as well. And then you have people who read for entertainment. It is sort of, kind of more along the lines of reading for an escape, although, like I said, either way you go, it's all an escape from your reality. But reading for entertainment is sort of kind of becomes a hobby of sorts, and you usually tend to stick to one particular type of genre that you like, or a type of book, or a type of reading material, and you don't really stray too far off the beaten path. You don't stray too far away from your comfort zone, because you are reading for your own personal enjoyment, and you are reading for your own personal pleasure and your own means and gains. So you do have that as well. And then you have, so many of us here in the world who read for a combination of all of the above. And, there are different combinations, whether it's, you read for study, but you also read for entertainment, but you also can read for enlightenment, and you also can read, to sort of escape your reality for a while. The older I get, the more I start to see that I think that we read what we need to at the time. And I've sort of come to this realization because after making my favorite books of 2014 video, I started to really think, and just thinking about all the books that I read that year really kind of opened up my mind to reflection and thinking more about what I read in 2014 and why I read what I read. And if you've seen my part 1 or part 2 of my favorite books of 2014 video, then you know that I read primarily new adult books in 2014. I also read primarily self-published books and primarily romance books in 2014. And my initial reason for going into that direction at the beginning of the year is that I was exploring writing new adult, and I wanted to get more of a firm grasp on the genre and a firm grasp on what was being published or self-published and what was being enjoyed by readers. And I also wanted to do a lot more research on romance and how to write an effective and a believable romance. And so I kind of went into it from a more research perspective or a study perspective, since we did list all those categories in the beginning. So that was my initial that was my initial reason for going in that direction. And then as I began to go forward in it, and it turns out that I read primarily romantic new adult books in 2014, and there weren't many deviations from that genre. It sort of became familiar to me. It sort of became reading for entertainment. It became comfortable, and I didn't want to move out of that genre. I didn't want to move out of my comfort zone. I became so familiar with it that it became sort of a security blanket. And then I started reading more for an escape, because 2014 was one of the hardest years of my life. I had a lot of personal challenges. A lot of big changes happened in 2014, and emotionally, physically, and mentally, I was stretched in ways that I've never been stretched before, and challenged in ways I've never been challenged before, which have ultimately made me into a stronger person. But going through it all was very harrowing and emotional, and very, very just not always, the best of times. And there were a lot of lows and a lot of valleys, and just a lot of, struggles. And so I started to read more for an escape. And then I realized that 2014 was also the least romantic year of my life. It was a very solitary year for me, a very independent year for me, and I was not at all focusing on any type of romantic relationships. For the first time in my sort of teenage to adult life, I was completely 100% focused on myself and on my own goals and my own dreams. I wasn't dating anyone. I'm still not. And I wasn't focused on that or thinking about that or wondering about that in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't making any plans or strides in that direction. And, it was as if that part of me had just completely shut down and was tucked away into a box. And instead I was focusing on myself and my career goals and my own plans. And I had tunnel vision. And so it kind of became an escape, because, I could escape into this fantasy world where people were getting to fall in love and kind of have this romance that I hope to have at some point in my lifetime. Who knows? And so it was kind of like this pleasant place to escape to, because I was lacking that in my own life. And, so it kind of morphed, it went from reading for study, because I was, thinking about maybe becoming a romance writer or a new adult writer. And then it sort of morphed into reading for entertainment, because I got so comfortable in the genre and the reading just came so easily to me. It's such easy reading. And it sort of became a guilty pleasure in a way. And then after that, it kind of morphed into, reading for an escape, because it became like this fantasy world that I could escape to get something out of it that I wasn't getting in my own real everyday life. So it was just really interesting to kind of think about this and to realize that this was my taste of reading and my kind of path, in particular, like enjoyment of reading and the kind of reading that I was really looking for, because it was what I needed. This is what I needed in 2014. This is what I needed in my reading life. And now that I'm moving in a new direction, I've noticed that I tried to read a new adult book, and I tried to go back to the e-reads that I was reading just out of curiosity, and I just couldn't do it. If you watched my December wrap-up video, you see that I picked up a Susan Elizabeth Phillips book, which I really used to enjoy her books, and she writes kind of contemporary romances and rom-coms and kind of chick lit, and I just could not get into the story. I was very just, almost disgusted, but that's not maligning the whole entire genre, but I just wasn't interested, and it just wasn't to my taste. And I'm trying to kind of go in a new reading direction, and it's as if my brain has completely shifted, and my tastes and desires and what I look for in a book and what I look for in a story have completely shifted to sort of suit this new path and this new season of my life. And it's something that I've started to notice. I need something new now. I need something different in my reading life. And so it's almost as if my brain has shifted accordingly. My reading tastes have changed and morphed accordingly. So it's just something I've been really thinking about, and I think is very interesting, because when I think about when I was a child and the books that I enjoyed when I was little and what I was really looking for in my reading experience, I read a lot of classics, and I think it's because I was really trying to steep myself in sort of the European sensibility and the Americana way of thinking. A lot of you don't know, but I actually moved to this country when I was 7 years old from Nigeria, which is a country in West Africa, or Africa, the continent, but particularly in the West. And I came to America as a 7-year-old with my family, and I was made to feel very other, and I was made to feel very just out of place. And I remember spending the first 3 years of my life in America desperately trying to assimilate and to fit in. And that's when my reading really took off. That's something I also really noticed, is that I really fell in love with reading when I was 7 years old, which ironically is the same year that we moved to America. And I was just desperately trying to fit in, and I was trying to kind of acclimate myself to this westernized, super westernized and Americanized or American culture. And I was trying to read all these classics. I was trying to sort of kind of train my brain to think like an American. And I also realized that I also used to get a lot of flack when I was younger for my reading choices, and even to this day sometimes I do, because as a woman of color I get a lot of flack for perhaps not caring as much about, you know, race relations, or caring as much about reading you know, a lot of African American fiction or African fiction, and that's simply just not the case. I read a lot of that when I was younger, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. I'm actually, you know, very well read and very varied in my reading. I just got a lot of that stuff done when I was a lot younger, and so now that I'm older, I've sort of kind of, you know, gone in different directions. Not that to say I won't go back to that. I'm actually planning on doing that this year, but I think a lot of people come into kind of reading for themselves and trying to find themselves in the literature they read later on in life, when they're trying to figure out who they are and they're realizing their identity. And if you are a person of color in America, you cannot help but go through a period of time, not that everyone doesn't, but particularly if you're a person of color, where you are really made to feel other, and you're trying to come to terms with your skin tone and how you are viewed by other people, and the white gaze and all these other things. So, you know, with the after effects of slavery in this country in this particular, and with how people feel about people of different skin tones, and obviously not everyone, but, you know, just kind of the lasting effects of racism in this country, it makes it very difficult for people of color to not recognize that they are other, and that they are not represented, not only in literature but also not in media and in so many other career paths and social platforms. So I kind of came to that earlier in my life, but at the same time I also do think that growing up in a country where everyone looked like me everyone did, and I grew up there for 7 years of my life, so I did not grow up with this feeling of other. And when you're a person of color in America, you grow up with this feeling of other at all times. You're always made to feel, you know, on the outside looking in from the first time a book is placed into your hands, unless you have parents that are super conscious of making sure that you get literature in where people look like you and sound like you and have the same experiences as you do. From the first time a book is placed into your hands is from a westernized perspective, and it's from a Europeanized gaze and a whitened gaze, and you know, a lot of times people don't realize that if you know, you're not familiar or you're not a person of color, it's very hard to kind of have your eyes open to that perspective. And, you know, growing up for 7 years of my life in a country where everyone did look like me, and, you know, that kind of insecurity just isn't there. That type of awareness isn't there. I had to develop it a little bit later in life. And moving to America, I actually thought that everybody here was going to be white. So moving here and seeing other people who did look like me was kind of a shock to my 7-year-old brain. And then I also had to deal with the shock of racism from my own race, you know, for not being black enough, or for being from Africa, and all the prejudices that people have about Africa. And so reading, you know, has really morphed and changed depending upon what I was facing at different seasons and times in my life. When I was younger, I was trying to assimilate and fit into a country where I was just, you know, an outsider, and I was just trying to kind of get my brain into the mode of thinking of other people that were around me. And then as I got older, you know, things morphed accordingly to what I was going through at the time. So it just has really brought up a lot of reflection, a lot of memories, and a lot of just thinking about why we read and how we read, and why we read what we do at certain periods of time in our life, why our reading tastes change and morph as we get older, as we go through different things and different experiences. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this. I think it's really fascinating, interesting topic. I would love to hear about your experiences, and, you know, how reading has connected to different parts of your life and different trials and tribulations that you've been through, or different, you know, seasons of your life that you've been through, and how that has affected your reading, or how your reading has affected, you know, how your reading has affected you, you know, or vice versa. So yeah, I don't know, I think it's fascinating. It has just really made me think about a lot of things, and I love that. And I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful community where we can talk about these type of things, and I would really love to hear some responses from you guys. And I guess that's it. That's it, and I will see you guys in my next video, and yeah, bye guys.